He was about to end his life. Then a stranger said this. The wind was cold that night. It moved quietly across the empty bridge as if the world itself had gone silent. Below, the dark river flowed slowly, carrying leaves and shadows through the night. Sarah stood at the edge of the bridge, gripping the cold metal railing. Her hands trembled, her eyes were tired, and her heart felt heavier than it had ever been. She looked down at the water. Then she whispered softly to herself, "Maybe everyone would be better without me." For a long moment, she stood there alone in the darkness. But what Sarah didn't know was that in just a few minutes, someone would say a few simple words that would change her life forever. Sarah had not always felt this broken. Years ago, she was a hopeful young woman with big dreams. She loved helping people. She loved smiling. And she believed life had meaning. She worked at a small clothing shop in town. It wasn't a big job, but it helped her take care of herself and support her mother. Sarah believed that if she kept working hard, life would slowly become better. But life does not always follow the plans we make. One year, the shop where she worked suddenly closed. The owner moved away without warning. Sarah lost her job overnight. At first, she tried to stay hopeful. "I'll find something else," she told herself. But weeks passed, then months. Everywhere she went, people told her the same thing. "We're not hiring. Maybe next month." "We already filled the position." Her savings slowly disappeared. Bills began to pile up. Her landlord started knocking on her door more often. But the hardest moment came when her mother became sick. Her mother had always been strong. She was the one who always encouraged Sarah when life became difficult. But now everything had changed. Her mother grew weak. The medicine she needed was expensive. Sarah tried everything she could. She borrowed money. She sold some of her belongings. She skipped meals just to save a little more money. Still, it was never enough. One evening, Sarah sat quietly beside her mother's bed. The room was dim. The small lamp beside the bed flickered softly. Sarah held her mother's hand and tried not to cry. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I wish I could do more." A few days later, her mother passed away peacefully during the night. The silence that followed felt unbearable. The house that once felt warm now felt painfully empty. Sarah walked through the rooms and felt like something inside her had disappeared. Days turned into weeks. She stopped answering phone calls. She stopped visiting friends. She barely left the house. Slowly, painful thoughts began to fill her mind. Thoughts that told her something dangerous. That her life no longer mattered. That she was alone. And one cold night, those thoughts led her to the bridge. The bridge stood just outside the town. At night, very few people passed there. It was quiet. Too quiet. Sarah stared down at the dark river flowing below. Her mind replayed every painful memory. Losing her job, losing her mother, feeling abandoned by the world. Tears rolled down her face. "I tried," she whispered. "I really tried." She closed her eyes. The wind blew softly across the bridge. And in that moment, she felt completely alone. But then, a voice spoke behind her. "Excuse me." Sarah quickly wiped her tears and turned around. A man stood a few steps away. He looked like an ordinary traveler. Simple clothes, calm eyes, gentle expression. The stranger looked at her carefully. Then he asked quietly, "Are you okay?" Sarah forced a small smile. "Yes," she said quickly. But the stranger shook his head gently. "No," he replied softly. "I don't think you are." Something about his voice felt different. It was calm, kind, not judging. The stranger slowly walked closer and leaned against the railing beside her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They both looked down at the river. Then the stranger asked a question. "Do you believe your life still has value?" Sarah laughed sadly. "Value?" she said. "I lost my job. I lost my mother. I lost everything." The stranger nodded slowly. "I see." Then he looked directly at her and said something she would never forget. "You may have lost many things," the stranger said gently, "but your story is not finished yet." Sarah frowned. "My story?" she asked. "Yes," the stranger replied. "Your life." Sarah shook her head. "You don't understand," she said. "Nothing good is waiting for me." The stranger remained calm. "Sometimes," he said softly, "the moment we believe everything is over is actually the moment something new is about to begin." Sarah looked at him silently. The stranger continued, "If you leave tonight, you will never see the next chapter." Those words hung in the cold air. Something deep inside Sarah began to shift. The stranger looked at her kindly. "You believe you failed," he said. "But the truth is, you loved your mother. You tried to care for her. You kept going even when life was painful. That is not failure. That is courage." Sarah felt tears fill her eyes again. No one had ever said that to her before. The stranger continued gently. "Pain can make us believe lies, but pain does not decide your future." Sarah whispered, "Then who does?" The stranger smiled softly. "You do." For a long moment, Sarah stood in silence. The wind continued to move across the bridge, but something inside her heart had begun to change. The darkness that once felt overwhelming now felt lighter, not gone, but weaker. Sarah slowly stepped back from the railing. The stranger noticed but said nothing. Instead, he simply smiled. Sarah looked across the river once more. It no longer looked like an ending. It looked like a path moving forward. She turned to thank the stranger, but suddenly he was gone. The bridge was empty again. No footsteps, no sound, only the wind. Sarah looked around in confusion. "Hello?" she called. No answer came, but the stranger's words remained in her heart. "Your story is not finished yet." That night, Sarah walked home slowly. The same streets, the same quiet town. But something inside her had changed. The pain was still there, but hope had returned. And hope is powerful. The next morning, Sarah decided to try again. She went back into town. She asked for work. Many places said no, but one small cafe needed help. The pay was small, but it was a beginning. Months passed. Sarah worked hard. She saved money. She met new people. Years later, she opened a small bakery of her own. It became a warm place where people gathered, shared stories, and found comfort. And every time someone walked through the door feeling discouraged, Sarah always remembered the night on the bridge and the stranger who reminded her that her story was not finished. Sometimes pain can make us believe our life has no meaning. It can whisper lies that tell us to give up. But the truth is this: your story is still being written. There are moments of healing you have not experienced yet. There are people you have not met yet. There are chapters of joy that are still waiting. Even in the darkest moments, hope can appear in the most unexpected ways. So if life ever feels too heavy, remember this: your story is not finished, and the next chapter may hold the very miracle you are waiting for.